Hello, my name is Dr. Okwebanwu, the Vision Overseer of the Cyber Embassy of Christ for All Nations. And I'm excited to share the vision of the world's first full-fledged 100% online church with you, and then invite you to join us in making the vision a reality as the Lord lays it on your heart after hearing me out today. I've been an attorney for over 35 years, 22 of them in the USA, and a digital business consultant by hobby for more than 7 years, as well as a pastor who successfully planted and pastored 2 churches in my neighborhood in Omaha, Nebraska, USA for more than 9 years. The vision for the all-online Cyber Embassy of Christ for All Nations was born out of a prayerful reflection on some key questions provoked by my digital business experience and practice in successfully helping thousands of businesses and individuals utilize the internet to achieve their business, personal, and financial goals. As I got to understand more and more about the internet works, how the internet works, the amazing things one can do with this relatively new technology, I began to feel an internal urging to find answers to some of the following spiritual questions. What if we have a church that exists only on the internet, administered solely on the internet, and acts solely to take care of God's people using the medium of the internet? What if we have an internet church run by people on the internet, for the people on the internet? Now, I'm not talking about just streaming church sermons on the internet. Millions are already doing that. I'm not talking about just having Facebook pages for your church or simply sharing church events when it's happening. Millions are doing that already. I'm not even talking about the occasional sharing of evangelistic messages just when we feel like it on the internet. No, I'm talking about something more all-encompassing. I'm talking about a full-fledged, all 100% online church. I'm talking about a truly borderless, wall-less, and buildingless church. Yes, I'm talking about a new model for church for the 21st century. I'm talking about a complete standalone church without walls that exists solely on the internet. For the record, this is not about spreading any new kind of message. It's about spreading the same old kingdom message the right way, using a new powerful medium that God has so graciously provided. The message, after all, is the same if you understand it today, tomorrow, and forever. But the medium of delivering it is always changing, it is dynamic, and it needs to change again, as we can obviously all observe. At one point, church only happened in the synagogues, and the priesthood was limited to only the initiate and the inner circle. Not everyone can own or read or interpret the word of God for themselves. Then Jesus came and took the message to the masses on the street corners and ordered his disciples to take the kingdom message he taught them to every nook and corner of the world. For years, the disciples did just that. They took the church everywhere they could, and many were even martyred in the process. Over time, the church leaders felt a need to consolidate and make church exclusive again, and church building and denominations took control. And many churches came up with doctrines that often held people in bondage and suffering rather than liberating them as God intended. Many of our churches no longer teach people how to actually experience and find God for themselves. Many were too busy building edifices. At one point, one church actually took control of the gospel, and any dissenter to their doctrines was burnt at the stake as a heretic. Of course, the Holy Spirit cannot be caged. Eventually, a new breed of Christians, inspired by the great Martin Luther and others like him, dared to challenge the status quo, and that gave birth to the Protestant movement. That, in the fullness of time, also sparked a whole new set of churches, including Baptists, evangelicals, Pentecostals, even indigenous churches across many nations. Following this transformation, hundreds of denominations and groups sprang up all over the world. And despite their many imperfections, many of these churches spread the word of God the way they knew how and helped billions find their way back to Eden. Despite their many flaws, many of these churches did, and some are still doing a great work today. But most are limited by the gigantic buildings they have to build, maintain, and the countless staff they are to maintain. In many cases, the pressure to sustain the big church structures often compel the church leaders of those churches to push the spread of the gospel to the background as they try to survive as a business. Some of these big churches even started coming up with questionable doctrines and teachings that appear designed just to keep their members loyal and to keep their members giving to their pastors. In recent times, many people appear to have had enough about the confining buildings, their manipulative pastors, and the old drama of gospel of prosperity that only seem to work for the pastors and church leaders. Many are in fact so disillusioned by the current church setup in physical churches that they now prefer to stay at home and browse the internet instead of going to church on Sundays. Many unbelievers looking for solutions are turning to the internet, where in the absence of a real organized full digital church presence, for most churches, they are being captured by porn sites, the Illuminati, and even the Church of Satan. Like I always say, there are no unbelievers. The question is, what do you believe? There are always people pushing their beliefs on the internet. And if the church is not there, others are going to make them believe something else. So it is very clear, it is time for a new model church for the 21st century. The competition for souls has now shifted from local buildings to the wide, wide world. Many are online on Sunday morning than in the church buildings all over the world. Across the board, most churches are experiencing a decline in attendance. So it's time for the people of God to take the message to where the people are. After all, Jesus took it to the streets 2,000 plus years ago. And the new street today is the internet. As Jesus once said to the woman at the pool, the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman in John chapter 4, he said, believe me, the hour is coming when you will not worship God on this mountain or that mountain. But the hour is coming, and the hour is now here, when true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father is seeking such people to worship him. The church is moving from the physical mountain to the digital mountain now. And we must move with the Spirit to worship God where we now spend most of our time. So I invite you today to join me in pioneering what I believe with all my heart, with all my soul, is the new move of God. The internet was not created by the devil, but it's a new move that God made happen so that his word can continue to march forward all over the world. I think this may be a stretch for you to understand when I'm talking about an all online, 100% online church. So close your eyes with me for a second, please, and imagine with me for a few minutes. Just close your eyes wherever you are watching this right now. Imagine a church with no physical address for members to go to gather in. A church where all messages and correspondence with the church by third parties are received online and responded to online. A church where everything happens online. A church that preaches the word, does its works, and grow online with its congregation with no physical building behind it. A church where the pastor is ministering 100% online from wherever he is. A church where all the workers and ministers and pastors meet and do their work 100% on the internet. Not just seconded part-time from a physical church to go and minister online the way we have it in 99% of churches right now. A church where members join online and participate in church activities exclusively on the internet. A church where all the church services and church activities happen 100% online and nowhere else. A church where sermons are live online and kept online for God's people. A church where live Bible study groups all take place in different social media and internet portals on the internet. A church where all the evangelism work is done online, where the real people that Jesus is looking for are right now. A church where the lost, the hungry, the angry, the brokenhearted, and the discouraged are all ministered to using the tool of the internet. A church where fellowships among believers happen in several places on the internet in an organized and at the same time decentralized manner. Truth is, the gospel, history has showed us that the gospel cannot and should not be caged or confined in physical buildings. The internet is God's new tool to ensure we free up the gospel again. So I'm dreaming of a church movement that will ultimately usher in the coming of the Messiah. Since Jesus himself said the gospel still has to be shared, the gospel still has to be shared all over the world, and then it will come. With the internet of today, we have everything we need to get the gospel to the whole world at minimal cost and minimal risk. With the internet, we no longer need to risk life and limbs to get the word into Saudi Arabia or Pakistan or any of the resistant countries like China. We simply spread the word through the air, through mobile apps, through the internet, through social media. Yes, imagine with me a church devoted to supporting charitable causes all over the world by selecting different and operating different fundraisers for worthy causes, where it is organized and executed all 100% online. Yes, I'm talking about a truly all digital church without walls. This is a burning desire inside of me for years now. The reason the gospel is limited right now in maximizing the internet for the Great Commission is a failure. I believe it's a failure of the imagination on the part of many of our Christian leaders. These are indeed the times for the sons of Issachar, who knows the sign of the times, to correctly interpret it and exploit it to extend the kingdom message all over the world. Now the technology is there. The technology is all there to do a full-fledged church service where the pastor is in New Jersey and the opening prayer is done by someone else in Accra. We can now do worship where the worship leader is in Toronto this week, and the next week the worship is led by somebody in Indiana, USA. With the internet, the pastor can now take testimonies live in London, while those giving those testimonies are doing so live from different places like Australia, India, and South Africa. We can now experience a full-fledged all-digital church without walls, without buildings, and without chairs, without anything physical except the people being ministered to. It is now possible with a few clicks of the computer mouse. But we need you to join us and help us make these possibilities a reality for the Great Commission. So we are looking for committed people who will help us usher in a new church model for the new millennium that will eventually challenge all other conventional churches to launch their own all-digital churches too, by actually ordaining and dedicating e-pastors, e-ministers, and e-evangelists to go out there and capture the world for Christ. So if you are tired of the status quo and you know there is more to experiencing church than a church building, then join us at the Cyber Embassy of Christ for All Nations to give life to this vision and inspire other churches to start their own digital churches too. We will be launching the Cyber Embassy of Christ for All Nations on February 22nd, the very first Sunday of 2020. But before then, we need to get organized. So we are looking for pioneer church workers, church members, church ministers, and pastors who will help us make the dream come true. If you are led to join us as you watch this or listen to this anywhere you are right now, please click on the link below this video and complete the form to join us as a volunteer member or a worker or a minister. We desperately need pastors. We need e-evangelists. We need e-ministers. We need e-prayer warriors. We need e-ushers. We need e-worship leaders. We need e-technical crew and web managers. We need social media ministers. We need internet church administrators. Don't worry so much about how all these things will be. With man, some of these things look impossible to do online. But with God, all things are possible. Join us right now and be part of the new move of God at the cyberembassy.org/pioneers. The Cyber Embassy of Christ for all nations is a dream I've had for over 5 years. I've talked about it with several friends and several pastors for years. I have prayed about it, and others have joined me in praying for it for the last few years. Now it's time to move beyond the talk and the prayers into actually making it happen so that we can inspire other churches all over the world to get going in taking over the power of the internet for the gospel message. Please join us today and make this happen. Obviously, we can't do this alone. Please complete the form and let's get to work. The cyberembassy.org/pioneers. I look forward to working with you in the next coming days and weeks as we train our new members, our new workers, our new pastors on how to actually run this church on the internet. All we're asking for right now is the interest, the passion, and the commitment to the Word of God. The rest, God will give us the enablement. God will teach us. God will give us the wisdom on how to take churches from physical buildings and actually make them work to the glory of God on the internet. I'm excited about this new move of God, and I look forward to partnering with you to make this a reality.